Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister.
My fellow Singaporeans, good evening again. A lot has happened since my last National Day rally. We had a good general election, and now we have the next generation of leaders firmly in place. We've been working hard to lay the foundation for the next 50 years. Skills Future, the SG Future, conversations and projects, the CFE, the Committee on the Future Economy. This last month has been good for Singapore. The first NDP after SG50 in the new National Stadium went well. And in Rio, Team Singapore did us proud. But while we celebrate, we should continue to prepare for our future. Therefore, tonight, I want to speak seriously about the challenges that we face. My subjects will not all be easy or fun ones. Some sensitive topics may even make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. But it's my responsibility to talk candidly about them and tell you honestly what lies ahead and what we need to do to progress together. I want to ask 3 questions. 1, how do we progress together? 2, how do we secure our place in the world? And 3, how do we ensure good politics for Singapore? First question, how do we progress? We aspire to be among the leading cities in the world: New York, Shanghai, London, Tokyo, Sydney. One of the shining spots in the world, in human civilization, where people want to be, because here you can do great things. A good place to bring up children, where our young continue to enjoy opportunities and a better life. At the same time, we want Singapore to be our home, where we belong, where our families feel safe and secure, where we build a compassionate and inclusive society, leaving no one behind. We know what we want, but how do we get there? Among all the economic issues we are dealing with, slower growth, helping people to upgrade, strengthening social safety nets, the defining challenge which we face in this era is disruption. Things are changing fast, old models are not working, new models are coming thick and fast, and we are having to adjust and to keep up. Because of technology, globalization, and the disruption will happen over and over again, relentlessly. I just used the familiar example of the taxi business. Uber and Grab, these are private car hire services. They compete with taxis in cities all over the world. You open an app, it matches you with the nearest car. The car comes, you can see it coming on your map, picks you up where you are, takes you where you need to go. You tap on the app again, you rate the driver rates you, and you pay. No need to book a cab by phone, no need to hail a cruising cab along the street. I'm sure some of you came by Uber or Grab tonight. Anybody? A few hands. Some of you must have taken comfort in other taxis tonight. Anybody? Oh, taxi drivers must be getting worried, but I'm sure there are. How does Uber and Grab work? They grab data from users, they analyze the travel patterns, they adjust the charging to match supply and demand. So if there are lots of people wanting rides, not enough cars, fare goes up, more drivers turn up. If there are a lot of drivers, not enough rides, fare goes down, maybe more people will turn up wanting to ride, maybe some drivers will go home. It's a new way of doing it, and everywhere where there's Uber and Grab, or in China, Didi Kuaidi, and in other cities, different names, they are disrupting the taxi industry. Disrupting, but commuters are benefiting. Better service, more responsive, faster. But taxi companies and drivers find their business affected. And in some cities like London or Sydney or Jakarta or Paris, the drivers have staged protests, blockades. They want the governments to block the new services, protect their existing ways of doing business. What do we do in Singapore? We can respond to disruptive change like this in two ways. We can close ourselves off, try to stop people from using the new technology. You must do things the way you have always done it. So Uber out, Grab out. Any new services coming along? No. We impose restrictions, we protect the old ways, the taxi companies, and we force everybody to stick to that. But we'll be left behind and our commuters will lose out and our economy will suffer. The other way is to embrace change. Let the disruption happen. You can't stop it, but you can adjust it. You can adjust to it. Let the commuters enjoy better service, but help the incumbents and especially help the taxi drivers to adapt to the changes. And that's what we're doing. We're updating the rules to foster fair competition while protecting commuters. And we require all the drivers, whether taxis, Uber, Grab, or anybody else, you must have the right insurance, you must have clean records. And as we adjust the rules, the companies will have to adapt, and they can adapt. And I think the taxi drivers are watching this very carefully. I know quite a few are feeling anxious. I talk to Ang Hin Kee. Ang Hin Kee often brings them to his grassroots events, and I talk to them directly. And they ask, what's going to happen? Will they still have a livelihood? I said, you can also drive for the other side. They said, yes, but we have to work hard. But they can still make a living. Our taxi drivers have been level-headed about the competition. They've talked to us, they've made useful recommendations how to level the playing field. Some of you have actually told me that you welcome the competition because now that you can go the other side, the taxi companies are taking the taxi drivers more seriously and responding with better offers, new technology, enabling you to compete. And on the other side, we also talk to the new operators, and the new operators tell us, well, it's not so easy to compete in Singapore because unlike other cities, in Singapore, the taxi business is quite efficient. It's competitive, the drivers work hard, and so they have to work hard to get their share of the pie. So there's competition. The playing field is in play. Not quite level. Taxis still have some extra rules. They have to drive a minimum mileage every day. I know this is a sore point. There's other statutory requirements which make taxis more expensive to operate. But then I remind the taxi drivers, you also enjoy some advantages. As the drivers told me, they can sweep the floor. I said, what does it mean, sweep the floor? That means you can pick up from the curb. Uber and Grab cannot. Street hails. And there are other advantages too, so we will progressively sort all these things out. But I think we all know that we can't stop progress, and even Uber and Grab are going to be disrupted, and the next round, maybe no drivers, driverless cars running a taxi service. And in fact, in Singapore next year, we are going to start a trial of driverless taxis in One North. So the same thing is happening in other industries as well. Like retail, shopping habits are changing, people are going online. You used to buy groceries from Fair Price. Now, you can shop online, somebody may go to the shop for you, collect it for you, and deliver the goods to you the next day, to your doorstep, or maybe to lockers in your neighborhood for online retailers like this PayStation. People also buying from overseas stores, Amazon, Taobao, wider range, often cheaper. Orchard Road shops are affected. They've become places where people look, see, go home to buy. can still do business, but different and not so easy. The retail business is very big in Singapore, 125,000 workers, 16,000 companies. As retail gets disrupted, we have to anticipate what's coming. We have to help companies and workers to adapt. But it's not just doom and gloom, because when you disrupt, you also create new jobs. Like now, if people order online, it still has to come to you, either to the box or to the house. So the delivery vans doing delivery service, they will have business. And as a transport and financial hub, if people are buying online all over Southeast Asia and Asia, we can be in that business. The goods shipped through Singapore, the financing has to be done somewhere. We can be a major player in this new logistics chain. And there will be new opportunities, data analytics, digital marketing, figuring out who's buying what, who is interested in which item, how to get the item to the person who wants it. Every industry is disrupted, but every industry is disrupted differently. So EDB, Spring, IDA, IE Singapore will work with these industries one by one, with the trade associations, with the chambers of commerce, develop specific programs to help the companies to use new technologies, to invest in skills. At the same time, we also need an overall strategy to find out, to be able to spot where the changes are coming from, to respond when things are disrupted, and to keep our economy growing so that our companies can be resilient, able to keep on finding new ways to do business, able to keep on employing Singaporeans in good jobs. And we have to prepare our workers to do good jobs, different jobs, new jobs during their lives. That is what CFE is doing, the Committee on the Future Economy, chaired by Heng Swee Keat and Iswaran. It's not quite done, but I will give you a preview of 3 of the themes from the CFE project. First, to build new capabilities. Secondly, to promote entrepreneurship. And thirdly, to develop new skills amongst our people. First of all, we'll help our companies to develop new capabilities. And one area where we can do this, which is promising, is digital. Because Singapore is well connected, we've got fiber everywhere, and our people are IT savvy. You just look at this. Where do you think this is, and what do you think they are doing? Somebody did that in the audience. That's Pokemon, and Pokemon Go has gone viral, but it shows that everybody has a phone, everybody is online, everybody is comfortable, able to use digital. And I think there are opportunities in digital. It's virtual, it doesn't require large areas of land, it will save labor, and we can do business with anyone from anywhere. We have already got companies doing interesting things in the digital space, like Ascent Solutions. It's a logistics SME. And in the logistics business, there are 2 major problems. One, delays in customs clearance, because when you go from border to border, somebody wants to look inside your box. And secondly, theft. That means pilferage, or maybe the whole container disappears. So Ascent Solutions came up with a digital solution. They were backed by Spring, and they developed a tracking device and a lock called iSpot. The iSpot is a lock on the container which has a GPS inside. Secure, tamper-proof, and you can be sure that what is inside stays inside, and what's outside doesn't get inside. And there's no need for the customs officers to inspect the box over and over again. And the owner can track where the box is all the time, 24/7. So with IE Singapore support, Ascent has taken it to East Africa. And there are more than 10,000 iSpots in East Africa. From Kenya to Uganda, it used to take 20 days to travel because 10 checkpoints to clear along the way. Each time you wait, and you may have to grease palms. But now, no need to clear customs over and over again because of the tamper-proof lock. In 2 days, you get there. It's a game changer. So I'm very proud that a Singapore company is doing good business in Africa with help from IE. Besides digital, we also need to build capabilities in other sectors. And we have some SMEs which can compete with the best in the world, and we should help them to grow, to scale up. I mentioned fragrance bak kwa and Luzerne just now in my Chinese speech, but we can also hold our own in engineering. Hope Technic. It's a homegrown engineering SME that's been making a name for itself. It's 10 years old now, it employs 110 people. You know some of the things they make because they make red rhinos and hazmat control vehicles for SCDF. They also make drones and specialized industrial and commercial equipment. 4 years ago, Hope Technic won a tender by Airbus. They beat top engineering firms in the world in this tender. And the job was to build a scale model of a space plane. A space plane is a combination of a spaceship and an airplane, and is a scale model for Airbus's civilian spacecraft program. They built it, they loaded it with sensors, they tested it successfully, took it up, high up in the air, flew it down, instrumented it. It's part of the research towards building a real space plane. So maybe in 20 years' time, when civilians go into space and space flight is a reality for all of us, then we can say, a Singaporean firm helped this to happen. Hope Technic focuses sharply on engineering, which it applies to niche areas. So it's able to create opportunities for itself. It's able to find new markets. It's able to create new jobs for Singaporeans. We must build this sort of new, deep capabilities in every sector: engineering, food manufacturing, logistics. And the government will support companies to do so. Beyond building capabilities, we should also promote entrepreneurship. Because engineering is one thing, but entrepreneurship, that dare to try something new, to venture, that's a different mindset. And entrepreneurs have that mindset, need that mindset. And we need people like that in our society. They play an important role, not just because they're doing business for themselves and doing well and creating jobs and prosperity and maybe making it big, but also because they're resourceful, they're optimistic. They give the society a confidence. Anything is possible, anything you can do, I will try and do better. And we need that mindset in Singapore. Through our own actions, we can change the world. And if we fail, we try again. If we fail, we try again. We refuse to give up. We keep on trying. One day, we will succeed. We started a small experiment at Block 71 Ayer Rajah 5 years ago. Block 71 was about to be demolished. JTC decided instead, don't knock it down, renovate it, launch it as an incubator. An incubator is a building which offers spaces for rent to entrepreneurs to start companies. This blue building, this is Block 71. It looks like an old JTC building with a new coat of paint. But a lot of bright ideas inside. We were offering not just buildings and the services, but also co-funding from government agencies. And started with a small group of startups attracted. It's been very successful. Now is expanded, Block 73, Block 79. So now they've changed the name and they've called it the Launch Pad. We even have a Block 71 in San Francisco to help our startups tap the US market and the Silicon Valley network. I visited Block 71, both here in Ayer Rajah and also in San Francisco. This one is talking to our young people in SF. Many of them starting their own companies. One company which came out of the original Block 71 is Simplistic. Simplistic makes the Rotimatic. The Rotimatic is the world's first automatic chapati and roti maker. You put in the flour, you put in the oil, you put in the water, you press a button, and after a minute, out comes fresh hot chapati and roti, 1 per minute. And if you've made chapati, you will know what hard work it is. In the old days, the women did the work, but nowadays the women are out at work, so they don't have time to make chapati anymore every day. But with the Roti-matic, the family can still have chapati for dinner. The Roti-matic was developed by Ms. Pranoti Nagarkar. She's a mechanical engineer by training, and her husband Rishi, who does the software. They brought it to market with Spring's help. It's generated a lot of interest internationally. And later on, you can try Roti-matic chapati at the reception. And tell Pranoti and Rishi what you think about it. Our schools are giving our students exposure to startup hotspots all over the world. NUS has overseas colleges in lots of places, including in Silicon Valley. And I just show you, these are some of the places. Guess where? This one is Fudan in Shanghai. This one is Stanford in SF, or near San Francisco. This one is in Tel Aviv. You can see the Hebrew street sign. But we are all over New York, Beijing, Munich, Lausanne, Stockholm. Students go there, they have a chance to attend classes at the universities there. They interact with startup founders, angel investors. They intern at the startups there, and they may get bitten by the bug and start something, try to change the world. It's still early days, but it looks promising. The startups are growing, investors are paying attention. Venture capitalists and some of the big tech companies are coming here. Google, PayPal, Facebook, setting up engineering things here. Because they see promising talent, interesting startups. And maybe the next Google or Facebook or Alibaba may come from Singapore. A strong economy, therefore, needs capabilities. You need the entrepreneurs, but you also need a skilled workforce. And if we give our workforce skills, we'll enable them to hold better jobs, earn better pay. And that's why skills future is crucial. We are preparing our students well for the new economy, equipping them with relevant skills which are in demand. Our polys and ITE offer courses in digital media design. And lots of these students intern at film studios like Ubisoft, Bandai Namco, Blizzard, Lucasfilm. Eventually, some of them work there. There are also other courses to train horticulturalists, food scientists, sports scientists, all sorts of new jobs which a generation ago didn't really exist. Opportunities are also opening up in cross-disciplinary areas. You study one thing, you combine that skill with something else, and you create something valuable. Take Sarah Salim. She graduated from NTU with a degree in visual design. She started a publishing firm doing graphic design. Now she works with GovTech at Hive. And she's applying her design skills to produce data visualizations on data.gov.sg, which is where you can find all the government information. And here's something she's working on. I'll just show you just one example, just for fun. This shows you the activities in active SG gyms during the week, weekdays, which day, which hour, when is it crowded, when is not. You look at Pishan, 62% occupied, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And you can see the most popular time is in the evening, the most popular day is in the weekends. So at the spot, you can see what's happening. You can compare Pishan with Bedok, Clementi, Jurong West average gym. How are they doing? I think Pishan is working harder than the rest. Bedok and Jurong West have gone on a tea break. So you need to make things visible, graphic, vivid, simple to understand. You need a lot of skill and hard work. So to produce a chart like this, you need graphic designers like Sarah. contributing to our smart nation. Sarah has just had a baby, so we should congratulate her too. For those people who are already working, to help them, we are offering courses to upgrade their skills and to achieve deeper mastery. And Skills Future offers all sorts of courses to this group: nursing, precision engineering, preschool education, not just individual courses, but pathways to upgrade yourself in your job. And that's what Madam Janessa Kumaran is doing. She became a preschool teacher with PCF about 10 years ago. Now she's a senior teacher, and she's taken up the Skills Future Study Award to do an advanced diploma in early childhood leadership at Ngee Ann Poly. Janessa aspires to become a center principal, and I'm sure she'll get there and become a great early childhood educator. Besides upgrading workers in their present careers, we're also helping workers who get retrenched or who change careers to transition, to find new jobs. It's tough to lose your job, especially when you are young or when you're not so young and you have family to support. But there is help available. Programs like Under Adapt and Grow, like the PCP, the Professional Conversion Programs, and the Career Support Program. They train you, help you to pick up new skills, move to a different industry, settle into a new job. NTUC is doing good work, helping not just rank and file workers, but PMEs too, like Gerard Peck. Gerard worked 30 years at a bank in IT security. Now in his 50s, last year he left the bank. He found it hard to find a new job. So he signed up for the CSP, Career Support Program. The CSP helped his new employer pay a portion of his wages for some time. It made it easier for his new employer to take him on. So with E2I's help, Gerard landed a job as head of IT at a new company, at another company early this year. Company is DataPost. DataPost is an SME in printing and mailing solutions. It's the biggest print bureau in the region. So Gerard has found his former banking experience useful, helping DataPost to transform their IT system and developing new business strategies for DataPost. Well done. I've talked about developing capabilities, encouraging entrepreneurship, developing skills. Earlier in my Chinese speech, I also discussed strengthening our safety nets. These are the ways our economy and our workers can thrive amidst disruption. This is how we can progress together and thrive in a competitive and dangerous world. And it is a dangerous world. So my second question is, how do we secure our place in the world? To start off with, we have to defend ourselves, and that's why we have the SAF. But as a small country, we also need a network of friends in our neighborhood, and also friends among the big powers all over the world, even in faraway places. We are a little bit like Mongolia. I visited Mongolia 2 months ago. They are size, area-wise, bigger than us, population-wise, about the same as us, but similar because their neighbors, two huge ones, much bigger than them. One is China, one is Russia. So if you ask the Mongolians how many neighbors they say they have 3 neighbors, China and Russia. Then who's the third neighbor? The third neighbor is Japan, the third neighbor is the US, the third neighbor is the South Koreans, the third neighbor is the EU. These are all Mongolia's third neighbors. So in the same way, Singapore also has 2 neighbors, Malaysia and Indonesia, and we have third neighbors all over the world. I've been busy with foreign trips this year because the world is important and we have to keep up links with them. Beyond Malaysia and Indonesia, our most important relationships are with China and with America. I just came back from an official visit to the US at the invitation of President Obama. It was a significant gesture. The last time a Singapore PM was officially welcomed in the White House with ceremonies was more than 30 years ago, when Mr. Lee Hsien Loong went in 1985. My visit reflects Singapore's warm and deep friendship with America, spanning many areas: economics, education, defense, security, people-to-people ties. We benefit from the dynamic and innovative US economy. We admire their warmth, their openness, their generosity. My visit was also a signal that the US values its friends and partners and appreciates Singapore's support for the role that America has played in the Asia-Pacific for more than 70 years, since the war. Spreading prosperity through trade and investments, maintaining security and stability, enabling all the countries in the region to thrive and to compete peacefully. And Singapore hopes that the US will keep on doing this even as China's influence grows. At the same time, Singapore is good friends with China. I'll be visiting China next month, including to Chongqing, where we have a third government-to-government project with China. Singapore hopes that China will develop and grow well too, because an unstable and backward China will cause Asia great trouble, as happened in the 1950s and 60s. Over the last 40 years, China has reformed and opened up under Deng Xiaoping and his successors. China has been stable and prosperous, and this has greatly benefited Asia and the world, including Singapore. We are happy to see China grow strong and influential in a constructive and peaceful way. And therefore, we are friends with both America and with China. It's easiest to do this if the two countries are on good terms with each other. And in fact, both countries do aim to be on good terms with each other. Both believe that the Pacific is vast enough to accommodate both powers. And President Xi Jinping said recently that America and US should cultivate common circles of friends. So that's precisely what Singapore's trying to be, among America's circles of friends and also among China's circle of friends. But life is never so straightforward. First of all, we may ourselves have some issue or other with these countries, as we did with the US when we caned Michael Fay for vandalism. And we've had issues with China too from time to time, when they felt that we didn't sufficiently defer to their interests. Also, sometimes the interests of our friends will conflict, and we will be pressured to choose sides. And one current issue which can cause trouble is the South China Sea. It's a complicated dispute. At one level, it's a dispute among parties who claim all or some of the islands and the reefs in the South China Sea. At another level, it's about the rights of the international community, which are provided for under UNCLOS, that means the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Rights like freedom of navigation, freedom of overflight. It's also about how international disputes and disagreements can be peacefully resolved. Now, if you don't fully understand what it is about, just remember this. This is a dispute which is very complicated because it's a dispute where even what is in dispute is itself being disputed. It's true, the lawyers will tell you so. What is mine is not in dispute. What is yours is in dispute. Singapore happens to be the country coordinator for the ASEAN-China dialogue relations right now. And this puts us in a slightly warm seat. Warm because each party wants us to side a bit more with them. And not possible for us to side with everybody at once. So we are doing our best to be an honest broker, dealing straight with all parties. Now, where do all these countries stand? Let me try and give you just a sense of it. China claims the 9-dash line. These spots, these dashes are the 9-dash line. There are 4 ASEAN countries which have overlapping claims in the South China Sea: Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Vietnam. The claims overlap with China, the claims overlap with one another. The US doesn't have claims in the South China Sea, but they do have interests at stake because freedom of navigation and overflight are very important to them. including through the South China Sea. 3 years ago, the Philippines launched a case against China under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. China refused to participate, but the tribunal heard the case, issued its award in July this year. The award said that China's claim to historic rights within the 9-dash line is incompatible with UNCLOS. China rejected the tribunal's jurisdiction and also categorically rejected the award as null and void. What is Singapore's interest and stand? We don't have any claims of our own in the South China Sea. We are right here, very far away. Even Pedra Branca is right here. So we have no claims of our own. We don't take sides on other people's claims, China, Philippines, the other claimants. But in other ways, we do have a lot at stake. And 3 things matter to us: international law, freedom of navigation, and a united ASEAN. Let me elaborate. Upholding international law and the peaceful settlement of disputes. For a small country like Singapore, this is a vital interest. When we have disputes with other countries, that's how we settle them. So with Malaysia, when there was a quarrel over Pedra Branca, we agreed to take it to the International Court of Justice at The Hague. Singapore secured a favorable result. Both sides accepted the ruling. We had another dispute with Malaysia later over the development charge issue in the POA on railway land. I agreed with PM Najib to submit it to arbitration. The ruling went against Singapore, but we both accepted it and we moved on. We didn't let it affect our relationship with Malaysia or my personal ties with Prime Minister Najib. And that's how international disputes should be settled. But in reality, big powers don't always act like that. Big powers can insist on their own interests, and often do. They don't submit to adjudication by international tribunals. They may not comply with their rulings. And China is not the only country to do this. And nor is this the first time something like this has happened. But nevertheless, Singapore must support and strive for a rules-based international order. We have to depend on words and treaties. They mean everything to us. We cannot afford to have international relations work on the basis that might is right. If rules don't matter, then small countries like Singapore have no chance of survival. Our second interest in the South China Sea is freedom of navigation. I explain why. You look at the map. Singapore is this little spot down here, little red dot. We have 2 vital sea lanes of communication, 2 arteries, one through the South China Sea, one through the Straits of Malacca. So ships come from Europe, Suez Canal, they come through the Straits of Malacca, past Singapore, up the South China Sea to Japan, the Far East, and vice versa. Both of these are arteries. You block one, you die. Likewise with air routes. So it's very important to us that disputes in the South China Sea do not affect freedom of navigation or overflight by ships or aircraft. Thirdly, Singapore needs a united and effective ASEAN. Our voice internationally, 5 million people, counts for not so much. But if ASEAN can get together, united, collectively, 600 million people, it can make itself heard quite a lot better, provided ASEAN is united. But on the South China Sea issue, ASEAN finds it very hard to take a common stand because the members have different interests. Some are close to China, like Laos and Cambodia. Others, like Philippines and Thailand, are treaty allies of the United States. Some are claimant states in the South China Sea. Others are not. Some don't even have a coastline in the South China Sea, like Myanmar. Myanmar is not in the South China Sea. They are on the Andaman Sea, in the Indian Ocean. So ASEAN has got different interests and is very hard to come together. But the trouble is, if ASEAN can't deal with a major issue like this on its doorstep, affecting its members, in the long run, nobody will take ASEAN seriously. And that will be very bad for all of the members of ASEAN, and for Singapore too. So on the South China Sea, we've got our own stand, principled, consistent. Different from China's, different from the Philippines or America. Other countries will persuade us to side with them, one side or the other, and we have to choose our own place to stand. What is in our interest, calculate it, choose the spot, stand firm, cannot succumb to pressure. I tell you this so that you will understand why we do what we do and why we have to stand up for Singapore's position. Sometimes if you read the foreign media, including the PRC media, you will find articles criticizing Singapore for not siding more with them. And I know some Singaporeans are concerned about these criticisms because they have foreign friends, PRC friends, business partners, academic colleagues, personal contacts. They may tell you, any tension between Singapore and China will affect your business, affect your collaboration. And I understand these concerns. We would like business and collaboration to continue too, to flourish between Singapore and China, and Singapore and other countries. Because these are arrangements which benefit both sides. If they are disrupted, both sides lose. But the government has to take a national point of view, decide what's in Singapore's overall interests. We want good relations with other countries if it's at all possible, but we must also be prepared for ups and downs from time to time. Singapore has a reputation to protect, that we have our own independent, carefully thought out stand. We cooperate with other countries, but we make our own calculations. And that's what makes us credible, consistent, reliable, valuable to others, to our ASEAN partners, to the powers, America, China, Europe. It's taken us a long time to build up this reputation, and we have to be very careful to maintain it. Our relationship with China is much broader than the South China Sea. The friendship has lasted for decades. We've done major G2G projects with them. We have the Suzhou Industrial Park, the Tianjin Eco-City. If you look at the flats, if they look like HDB flats, that's because that's where the inspiration came from. And now we have a Chongqing Connectivity Initiative, CCI, a third government-to-government project to support China's Western region development strategy. So we engage with many different provinces and cities. We are pursuing opportunities in infrastructure, in connectivity, financial services, urban planning, clean technology, working with China on One Belt, One Road, participating in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And we'll have many more opportunities to strengthen our friendship and cooperation with each other. That's how we do business. Near the home, our most important partners, Malaysia, Indonesia. We work hard to build up our ties with them, but these are sensitive and complex relationships. From time to time, there will be differences because of their deep-seated attitudes towards us. You may have read recently one Indonesian minister declared he was not afraid of Singapore because it's just a small country. It's an abang attitude towards us. It hasn't changed since we became independent. But we must not let these difficulties affect our broader bilateral cooperation. On the whole, today, our relations with Malaysia and Indonesia are good. With Malaysia, I settled the points of agreement on railway land with Najib. 20 years of trying, finally we succeeded and settled it. Last month, I was in Putrajaya to witness the MOU on the high-speed rail between Singapore and Malaysia. Najib, Prime Minister, hosted us to lunch. The durian was good. The high-speed rail will be better. With Indonesia, I meet President Jokowi regularly, including once over nasi lemak. We want to work with Indonesia to tackle transboundary haze, to deal with the companies causing it. And he's told me he's committed to solving the haze problem. We've also been discussing enhancing economic cooperation, encouraging Singapore companies to invest more in Indonesia, and including to refresh our long-standing cooperation in BBK, Batam, Bintan, Karimun, in the Riau Islands just close to Singapore. Next week, on Thursday, I'm having a leaders' retreat with President Jokowi. It's going to be in Semarang, which is in Java, Central Java. We are going there because Sembcorp has a joint venture there to build an industrial park, Kendal Industrial Park. It's the first major industrial investment by Singapore company outside Batam. And I'm going to be opening it with President Jokowi, and I hope that it will encourage more Singaporeans to go and to find opportunities in Indonesia. One urgent issue where we have to cooperate with our neighbors is terrorism. It's on our minds now. Almost every day we read of new attacks somewhere. US, Europe, the Middle East, closer to home, Indonesia and Malaysia too. We are seeing lone wolf attacks by self-radicalized individuals. They go online, they get led astray, they plan something by themselves, then they mount an attack, murder innocent people. You have the truck rampage in Nice, the nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida, many more attacks, each one heartbreaking, shocking, yet each time no longer a real surprise. Such attacks are almost impossible to prevent completely because they are inspired by ISIS, but there's no group involved planning, executing it. So it's just one person, two persons. It's much harder for the security forces to discover and to prevent these attacks. The terrorist groups are active all around us in Southeast Asia. In Indonesia, you've read about the arrest of Gigi Rahmat Dewa and his group in Batam. They were planning to attack Singapore, to fire a rocket to hit Marina Bay Sands from Batam. Now, speaking as a former artilleryman, I will tell you, it is not so easy to fire one rocket and hit one building 20 kilometers away. Can be done, not easy. But the trouble is, if you fire one rocket at Singapore and you miss Marina Bay Sands, you may hit something else. So we have to take this very seriously. And furthermore, how do you know this was the only thing he was planning? And he didn't have other dark thoughts on how to attack Singapore. And how do you know, can you be sure that every last terrorist in the group has been arrested? Last December, the Indonesians were expecting attacks over Christmas and New Year. They had intelligence, they had news. They went out of their way to pick up and arrest the groups, disrupt the attacks. They nearly succeeded. They picked up all of the groups, cleaned up all the terrorist cells, except one. And that one cell evaded the dragnet. In January, they mounted an attack in Jakarta. Fortunately, not so successful, but still a couple of people died. In Malaysia, there was a grenade attack in Puchong, near Putrajaya, in June. It was ordered by a Malaysian militant in Syria. But even long before this, the Malaysian authorities knew they had problems because they had arrested around 200 ISIS supporters, including at least 13 MAF personnel. Armed forces people, trained, pre-trained. Last month, Malaysia found that 7 prison wardens had been radicalized by their detainees. You lock the chap up, the chap subverts your jailer. The wardens had to be sent for de-radicalization. It reminded me of what happened in the 1950s when we locked up the pro-communist left-wing activists. And they did the same thing. They subverted their jailers in Changi prison. And that's why we had to change their jailers and put in Gurkha guards. Don't speak Chinese, cannot be subverted. Yes. There are perhaps 1,000 Malaysians and Indonesians in the Middle East fighting with ISIS. It's enough for ISIS to form a Bahasa-speaking battalion. It's called the Katiba Nusantara, or the Archipelago Battalion, meaning the Malay Archipelago. One of the leaders is Barun Naim, an Indonesian, the one who ordered the Christmas and New Year attacks in Jakarta. ISIS has a magazine, Al-Fatihin, published by a media agency, which is its friend, in Bahasa Indonesia. We've had to ban that magazine recently. ISIS itself puts out propaganda videos in Bahasa. It shows child fighters training with firearms. These are children of Malaysian and Indonesian fighters. And it shows the Malaysian and Indonesian fighters beheading hostages on the video so as to impress possible recruits and get more people to join them from Southeast Asia. So in Singapore, we are taking this absolutely seriously. It's not just an external threat around us, it can also be, and it is, a domestic issue. Because Singaporeans are not uniquely immune to jihadist propaganda. We've arrested a dozen Singaporeans who have been radicalized over the last year or two. Some have surfed jihadist websites. Some listen to extremist radio stations in our region. Some were radicalized by friends. Most were self-radicalized. Several tried to go to the Middle East to join ISIS, and a few succeeded, and they're still there. There were a few who were prepared to mount attacks on Singapore, including one who was trying to go to Syria, and if he couldn't get there, he would do something here and try to kill either the president or the PM. We continue to pick up a steady trickle of such people, 1 or 2 a month. And just these last 2 days, you would have seen the news that the police have dealt with 4 Singaporeans who had been radicalized and were planning to go to Syria. 3 with family connections, and a 4th one with a link to Batam. So Gigi's plot to attack MBS is not the only definite plan by terrorists to attack targets in Singapore that we know of. We know there have been others. We've quietly acted on the information, we've taken precautions, stepped up patrols, raised protection for major events, for prominent premises. Sometimes we've shifted and rescheduled events because of these threats. We take it seriously. It's not certain enough to warn everybody publicly, but serious enough for us to act quietly. So the next time you see a patrol in the city or some extra security in some areas, maybe we're just taking precautions or doing a show of force as deterrence, but it could also be in response to a real threat that we've heard about. Fortunately, we haven't been attacked so far. But what happens when a terrorist gets through and an attack occurs in Singapore? If the terrorist comes from abroad, I think it may be easier for us to stand together. But if the terrorist is domestic, Singaporean, one of our own, self-radicalized, like what happened in Nice, where the truck driver was a French, I think our multiracial society will come under tremendous strain. And then, how do we react? There are 2 possible things which can happen. You look at other countries. One, people stand up, stand together, show a collective will, refuse to be cowed. After an attack, people help one another, even strangers. Like happened in Paris after the major attack last November. The Parisians stepped up to offer shelter and free taxi rides to those who were stranded. They donated blood at hospitals. Muslims and non-Muslims came together, defied the terrorists, and resolved to carry on with life normally. We will not be cowed. That's one reaction. But you also see another reaction: distrust, suspicion, fear. Different communities fear and blame each other. Racial attacks go up. And in Paris last year, you saw some of this too. Mosques and Muslim shops vandalized. Muslims physically assaulted, especially women and girls wearing religious attire. Then the question is, which will happen in Singapore? That, answer to the question comes down to our collective resolve to stand together with one another. And that, in turn, depends on how well we prepare ourselves now, before an attack. Prepare ourselves to build trust, to strengthen bonds, to maintain and expand our common space so that instinctively we feel one people. One big plus which Singapore has is that our religious and community leaders have taken courageous stands. They condemn terrorist attacks, they refute extremist views, they make it clear that terrorists don't represent Islam, nor do they represent Singapore Muslims. They lead by example. They guide their flocks, their communities to stand together. They also understand that ours is a multiracial society. There has to be give and take. Each community has to engage and understand each other. It must not segregate itself from other communities. We have to respect one another's religions. We cannot treat other groups as infidels. If religious groups did the opposite, take an exclusivist approach, discourage interaction, contact with others, we will deepen our fault lines and weaken our society. Imagine if in Singapore only the Chinese wished each other Sin Nian Kuai Le. Only Muslims could say Selamat Hari Raya to each other. Only Indians, Hindus exchanged Deepavali greetings. And only Christians said Merry Christmas. It would be a very different, a very troubled Singapore. This is fundamental, that all religions in Singapore practice their faith in a multiracial, multi-religious context. Tolerant, give and take, respectful, warm. It has to be so here, it has been so here, but it is not so in many other countries. Maybe the same religion, but the practice and the teaching varies from country to country. And sometimes these practices and teachings are exclusivist, intolerant. So when we get foreign preachers visiting Singapore, if they don't understand our context and they want to preach these exclusivist practices and doctrines, they will cause us serious problems. So we have to act against them, and from time to time, we have acted against them. So we've banned such preachers from coming in, Christians some, Hindus some, Muslims also some. Our Muslim leaders have expressed concerns to us about such Muslim preachers. I'm glad they are vigilant, making sure that Islam, preached and practiced in Singapore, suits our multiracial context. And that's why MUIS and Pergas have the ARS, the Asatiza Recognition Scheme, to ensure that our religious teachers and scholars are reliable guides for the community. Already about 80% of our Asatiza are recognized. We need to strengthen the ARS. I welcome the call from Malay Muslim community leaders yesterday to make the ARS compulsory. That means all the Asatiza must be registered under the ARS, and those who are educated abroad should attend a professional development course before they get registered, so that they understand our local context. I support these proposals. I commend the Malay Muslim community because they've taken the initiative to deal with a sensitive problem. And with these measures, it will ensure that all the Asatizas in Singapore understand how is Islam practiced here, how you can guide Muslims, guide your students to live in harmony with other Singaporeans of all races and religions. So it's a very challenging landscape, security-wise. The region is shifting. There are new dynamics between the powers and within ASEAN. It's going to mean a more complicated world for us. Less tranquil. We have to be more watchful. We have terrorism threatening our safety and our social fabric. We have diplomat security forces, home team SAF, doing good work. But they by themselves alone cannot guarantee our security and safety or hold us together. Each of us has to do our part. Understanding our national interests, supporting Singapore in our relations with other countries, preparing ourselves to deal with terrorism, standing together before and after an attack. I'm launching SG Secure, the SG Secure movement, in September. It's a call to action, to be sensitized, train, mobilize all of us to protect Singapore against attack. Ultimately, what matters most is we must have that resolve to hold together, to fight, to defend our place in the world.